They didn't find cash under the mattress. They didn't find designer handbags. They didn't find a secret safe behind a picture frame. They found it in the freezer, wrapped tight, buried behind frozen peas, like someone was hiding a life they weren't meant to have. And the moment the officer pulled that drawer open, the whole case changed. Because this wasn't just a bit of fiddling the system. This was 78,000 pounds, and it had been going on right under everyone's nose. If you've ever thought, how do people get away with it? Stay with me. Because the way this story unfolds is honestly hard to believe. You know what's scary? Most of us in the UK, especially if you're older, grew up with a simple rule. You work hard, you do the right thing, you don't take what isn't yours. And when money gets tight, you cut back. You go without, you make do. So when you hear about benefit fraud, it doesn't just annoy you, it stings. Because it feels personal. It feels like someone is taking from the same pot that's meant for the people who genuinely need it, the people who've paid in their whole lives, the people who are already anxious every time a bill lands on the doormat. And what makes this case so unsettling is, on the outside, this person didn't look like a mastermind. They looked ordinary. Quiet street, normal house, normal face. The kind of neighbor you'd nod at, maybe even trust. But behind that front door was a different story, and it was about to crack wide open. It started the way these things usually do. Not with a dramatic raid. Not with sirens. With a whisper, a report, a raised eyebrow. Someone noticed something that didn't add up. Maybe it was a car that didn't match the struggling story. Maybe it was holidays, new gadgets, cash spending. Or maybe it was the fact that they kept telling one version of life to the authorities and living another version in public. And here's the bit that always gets people. Fraud rarely looks like a Hollywood villain. It looks like normal life, with tiny lies stacked on top of each other. A missing detail here, a forgot to mention there, until the lie becomes a lifestyle. And in this case, it wasn't a one-off. It wasn't confusion. It was a pattern. And once the pattern was spotted, the clock started ticking. So investigators begin quietly. Because if you storm in too early, you spook them. You give them time to hide things, move things, explain things away. So instead, it's paperwork first. Records, forms, dates, claims. Then it becomes cross-checking. What was declared versus what was actually happening. And this is where the tension builds because the system is patient. It waits. And while the person thinks they're safe, the net slowly tightens. Now, imagine being that investigator. You're looking at figures, looking at timelines. And you keep seeing the same thing. Money going out that shouldn't be going out. Not 200 pounds, not 2,000 pounds, tens of thousands. 78,000 pounds worth of support that was never meant to be paid. But here's what nobody knew yet. Where was it going? Because there was no obvious luxury, no flashy mansion, no sports car sitting proudly on the drive. So where did it go? And that's why what police found later hits so hard. Because it suggested something much more calculated. Before we get to the freezer, because yes, we're going there, let's break down how this kind of fraud can even happen in plain English. Most benefit fraud cases fall into a few basic tricks. 1, someone claims they live alone when they don't. That can change entitlements fast. 2, someone claims they're not working, while working cash in hand or running something on the side. 3, someone says their savings are low. but the truth is sitting somewhere else, hidden, not in their name, or simply not declared. 4, someone exaggerates a situation, what they can do, what they earn, who helps them, because they think it's only a bit. But a bit adds up monthly, quietly, like a tap you never turn off. And over time, that's how a number like £78,000 happens. Now, here's the part that matters for anyone watching, especially UK seniors. Sometimes genuine people get caught out by mistakes. Forms are confusing, life changes quickly, people forget to report something. But this case, the evidence suggested it wasn't a mistake. It looked like someone kept the story going even when they had multiple chances to stop. And when the paperwork starts pointing that way, that's when investigators move from checking to building a case. So the day comes. The visit, the entry. The house is quiet, too quiet. You can almost hear the electricity humming, the clock ticking in the hallway. An officer steps in and does what they always do, look for the obvious first. Drawers, envelopes, paper trails. But nothing jumps out. And for a moment, you can feel it. That frustration, that doubt. Is this a dead end? Then someone opens the kitchen, and they look at the freezer. Now, most freezers are boring. Ice cream, frozen chips, old bread you swear you'll use. But this freezer, it's packed. Overpacked, like it hasn't been cleared out in ages. And behind the normal stuff, right at the back, there are packages that don't look like food. Not labeled. Not transparent. Not normal. And when that drawer comes out and those bundles come free, it's the kind of moment that makes the room go still. Because what sits there in the cold isn't dinner, it's money, or documents, or items tied to what they'd been hiding, stored like evidence, preserved like a secret. And suddenly the question isn't, did they do it? It's, how long have they been planning this? Here's why that freezer detail matters so much. It shows mindset. People don't usually hide things in a freezer unless they're trying to protect it from being found quickly. It's an old trick. You don't expect it. You don't look there first. And it also tells you something darker. This wasn't panic. This was preparation. Now, at this point in the story, most people think the case is basically over. They've got the smoking gun. But this is where it gets even more intense, because one discovery leads to the next. If someone's hiding money or evidence in a freezer, what else have they hidden? What else is sitting just out of sight? And what about the story they've been telling? The declarations, the signatures, the repeated claims? Investigators go back through everything with fresh eyes. And suddenly the timeline becomes a staircase. Step, step, step. Each claim that shouldn't have been made. Each month money went out. Each moment where a change should have been reported and wasn't. And the total, when it's finally calculated properly, lands like a punch. £78,000. For a lot of viewers, that number is hard to even picture. That's heating bills for years. That's groceries. That's care costs. That's money people are counting pennies for. And it was being taken slowly, quietly, while someone acted like they had nothing. Now, let's talk about what usually happens next, because this is important and useful. When DWP fraud is suspected and investigated, it can lead to interviews under caution, evidence gathering, and then, if the case is strong, prosecution. And even if a person avoids prison in some cases, the consequences can still be massive. Repayments, criminal records, loss of benefits, and real shame in the community. Because once it becomes public, That normal neighbor image doesn't survive. People remember. Streets talk, families feel it. And this is where the human part kicks in, because you can't watch a story like this without asking, why? Why risk it? Why keep going? Why not stop when it was only a few hundred? Why let it grow to a number that would ruin you? Some people do it because they think the system is faceless. Like it's just numbers moving around. Some people convince themselves, I deserve it. Some start with a tiny lie and then realize they can't tell the truth without exposing the first lie. So they keep digging. And the deeper they go, the more they have to protect it. Hide things, move things, freeze things, until the whole life becomes one long cover-up. And then comes the moment that hits hardest, the moment the person realizes it's over. Not when the first question is asked, not when the letters arrive, but when they see that officers aren't guessing anymore. They're holding proof, they're holding the hidden thing, the thing that was meant to stay secret. That freezer wasn't just a hiding spot, it was a symbol. A cold little box of, I thought I could outsmart everyone. And when it was opened, it wasn't just evidence being uncovered, it was the end of the story they'd been living. Now, here's the twist people don't always expect. Fraud doesn't only hurt the government, it affects real people. It tightens checks, it slows down genuine claims. It creates suspicion around people who actually need help, and for older viewers especially, it can feel like the country you trusted is becoming something else. More paperwork, more scrutiny, more stress because of the few who took advantage. That's why cases like this spread so fast. Because the anger isn't just about the money, it's about fairness. So where does this leave us? If you're watching and you've ever worried about making a mistake with benefits, reporting changes, savings, living arrangements, let this be a reminder. It's always safer to be upfront early than to hope it'll be fine. Because the system doesn't usually catch things instantly. But when it does, it doesn't come with a gentle tap on the shoulder. It comes with files, dates, records, and sometimes a freezer drawer being pulled open. And once that happens, you don't get to rewind. And if you're watching as someone who's worked all your life, done things properly, and felt that familiar frustration when you hear stories like this, you're not wrong to feel it. Because fairness matters, trust matters, and when someone takes 78,000 pounds they weren't entitled to, it isn't clever, it's corrosive. So I'll leave you with this. The scariest part of this whole story isn't the freezer. It's how normal it looked, right up until it didn't. That's how these cases survive. In plain sight. Until one day, one small suspicion turns into a knock at the door, and everything hidden gets dragged into the light. If you want more stories like this, real investigations, real consequences, and the moments that expose what people never thought would be found, subscribe and watch the next video. Because the next case, it starts even quieter than this one and ends even louder.